Zephrin, there are seemingly a ton of online ad marketplaces. How do you differentiate yourself from the rest?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely something we think about a lot as a startup. For us, the market in which we operate is really a brand new segment of the cost per lead marketplace. So you can separate cost per lead advertising into two categories. The first is kind of the old category, which is sales leads. Those are generic leads, mortgages, car loans, insurance. Those leads can be resold to multiple buyers. So if you think of LendingTree, 4 offers for your loan, that means your data is sold 4 times. For a mortgage, that makes sense. However, in the category that we've been creating, which is marketing leads, the data is 100% owned by the advertiser and is specific to that advertiser. So for instance, we were the only cost per lead company to work with the Obama campaign. Those leads that we generated were the property of the Obama campaign, and obviously we couldn't sell them to another political candidate.
Right.
At least they wouldn't be happy if we did.
No,
and we did.
clearly not. Given the lead generation regulatory scrutiny a couple of years ago, I believe you guys came in after that. Did that affect your vision at all, or did you see a niche come about because of the regulation?
Yeah, so we really certainly saw that there was an overarching need for transparency in the market. So transparency in this case simply means, do you know where your offers are running? Do you know what publishers you're using, where your creative is, what it looks like? And that in itself was very disruptive in the cost per lead market because it really never existed before. So that was kind of our underlying premise.
Now this is, I think, your third startup?
Yes.
How do you walk the tightrope? We were just talking about venture capitalists.
Yes.
How do you walk the tightrope between cash conservation and furthering your brand?
Yeah, I think that's something you have to think about every day when you're running a startup. And I think the bottom line is you have to be ruthlessly honest with yourself about your position in the market and what is your real access to capital. If you have access to capital, then you can be more aggressive. You can postpone profitability and go for market share, especially if you have a very large market, like we do. I think there are other companies that, they don't necessarily have as large a potential market, and you don't necessarily want to create an entity with a massive burn rate. You want to target profitability and get there as quickly as you can.
Now, what's the best advice you've ever received with regard to starting a company?
Yeah. Well, I think the two best pieces of advice, because they're interrelated, and it goes back to something that Mark Andreessen talks about a lot with product market fit, is one, you have to love risk. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to love risk and be willing to take a lot of risk and go to sleep at night with a lot of risk, and
or be able to sleep at night.
And be able to sleep, or not always sleep. But the ability to take that risk means you can get through the second or third obstacle and the 200th obstacle that you're going to face as an entrepreneur. And really, that risk is also related to the need to be flexible, because as Mark, I think, said a little while ago, and he's said in a lot of blog posts, you have to be really willing to change your initial vision. Because as a great military leader once said, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. You'll always have to change your mission based on conditions on the ground. And we certainly evolved a lot as a company. You have a core vision, but the specifics change, and that flexibility is really key to success.
Now, when you go sit down with, say, a Mark Andreessen, what does any executive of a new startup need to know? What do you need to be able to pull off in that meeting?
Sure. Well, I think you have to have something that ideally has never been done before. And sometimes those things aren't necessarily as pie in the sky as people think. There's, I see a lot of buzz out in the market, about social media, virtual worlds, virtual currency, but sometimes some of the biggest opportunities are right in front of you. I mean, look at cost per lead. Fundamentally, people are creating all these new Twitter and mobile and engagement, all these different things, but so much of that media is still being bought and sold on very old models, either CPM, which is an old newspaper, essentially, pricing model, or CPC, which is newer. But fundamentally, there's still big pieces of the market that need to be developed in order to monetize content for publishers and make advertising more effective. There's still a lot of fundamental problems that are right in front of us that need to be solved.